Hello YouTube, it's the Lone Pantheist. I've been recently discussing topics on the internet, Facebook, YouTube, whatever, um, about just things that really bug the shit out of me. Two of these things are something that seem to coalesce into something that is completely and utterly intolerable. One is Christianity, the other is capitalism. And we have this idea, okay. Let's go ahead and we'll tackle capitalism first, all right. There's a comedian, Andrew Clavin, who goes on, talks about how liberals just don't understand that, currency is a representation of the resources, and how you exchange it and all that, well, no shit, okay. Currency is a representation of the resource, and it's bound by the resources, but the resources should never be bound by the currency. What I mean is that we live in a capitalistic system in which we've hit a recession. We no longer have paper. Okay, we no longer have a gold standard. We no longer have anything that cycles through, and you have people who actually believe that that means we're out of resources. That is like fifth grade mentality there. Okay, any 5-year-old knows that yes, money is exchanged. Okay, but what they don't know is that there is actually plenty of fucking resources out there. You can do your own search on it. Okay, if you ever been to a grocery store late at night, and you see them throwing out all their groceries that nobody bought because they sit there and it just rots. Okay, they're still taking a loss for it, but they refuse to, deduct the price or whatever because they're afraid that if people knew that they reduce the price because it didn't sell, then they wouldn't be making any money. And this also affects science. It affects our scientific advancement. Now, they say socialism doesn't work, communism doesn't work. To be honest with you, I think communism was ahead of its time. That is the inevitable factor. No matter who's reproducing, no matter what is going to happen, that is just inevitable. We will become a communist country. Now, actually, probably communist world. But now, so we no longer have this paper, so we can no longer tap into these resources, this magic paper that apparently makes resources. Okay. Now this affects at a fundamental level. Somebody, this is actually in psychology and sociology. If somebody doesn't make a profit from doing something, they're not going to do it. That actually says more about the mentality of the culture than it actually does about anything else. And that says there's something seriously, disturbingly wrong with that type of thinking, with that type of mechanism in their head, that they're not going to better their fellows because they feel like they're not going to be extremely elevated above everybody else. Okay. And that actually kind of coalesces with Christianity. This is where Christianity comes in. Okay. Rewind to like the 15th, 16th century France. Okay. Actually, probably like the 13th, 14th. All right. They had hospitals during the Black Plague, which, to be technical, it was in waves. It started, just after the collapse of the Roman Empire, and then it'd go away, and then all of a sudden the plague would magically reappear. But surprisingly, when Europe became Christian, they kept getting hit with plagues. But anyway, yeah. So they have a hospital where the poor are kept in one room in France, cramped up, sick, having to actually, you probably had throw up on you from somebody else because they had beds all tied together. And on the memorials, there's hell is pictured there. It says, "Thou must repent, or thou shalt be sent to hell," and stuff like that. Pictures of people being tortured and all that. Meanwhile, down the hall, you had several huge rooms for the rich, sleeping in nice little beds. They're still dying. They still figured out a way to really fuck with your head. They still figured out a way spiritually, and a lot of religions, or at least sects of religions, do this shit. And it bugs the hell out of me. They figure out a way to make you less than this person, even if you're experiencing the same event. Okay, these people are dying. All right, both of them, but they get to live in a room with one bed by themselves, catered on by nurses, and they have on their walls painted pictures of heaven and Jesus going to save them. Tonight you'll be with me in paradise type stuff. Okay. So as you can see, psychologically, they've already did something. They went out of their way to actually forcibly put people in the mindset that you're less than these people. Okay? And heaven and hell is the same thing. You have a stratified existence. You have people who are going to be suffering in heaven and hell for all eternity, and people who are just going to have pleasure for all eternity. Yeah, okay, somebody hasn't worked out the time scales here, because eventually you get used to both, and they tends to turn stale in your mouth. And there are actually some religions that have actually thought that through and said, "Oh yeah, that wouldn't work." It's stupid. Okay, no concept lasts forever. No situation or feeling lasts forever. Okay, you have people being tortured here, people being over there. You know, basically heaven's like, you kind of think of it kind of like the European Union or whatever, free healthcare, everybody's immortal, blah blah blah. And hell would be something like, well, living out in the middle of a desert or perhaps Africa, where you're having to suffer. Okay, so the whole God equation in Christianity does absolutely nothing. Okay, it has done nothing for us at all. It has not changed and has not elevated us. Science has elevated us. Okay? Eastern philosophy in the East, that elevated them. And then, of course, Islam came and tried to suppress things like Hinduism and stuff like that. But the Eastern philosophies actually kind of work, exception of caste system. But that's basically the same thing that, that's going to be kind of covered over here. Because I wouldn't doubt it that the Christian missionaries or early Christian missionaries have something to do to tweak with that. Okay, so yeah, and then Islam's even worse, It goes into great detail about how you're going to be tortured and you're going to have fire on your face for all eternity and shit like that, which pretty soon it'll just become just an event. It won't even bother you. Okay, and you'll be listening to Raphael's harp playing for all eternity. Yeah, that sounds like boring, okay? But anyway, humanity's done this, and what we have to do is we actually have to change our concept, our mindset. We actually have to change our culture. And this is going to happen regardless of who wants to stop it. The younger generation is more in tune with this change than the older generation is, and eventually that's just going to happen. Eventually, even amongst their fellows, the pro-Christian, pro-capitalism, pro-Protestantism, even amongst them, they're actually going to develop the concept of, everything is equal. Okay, it's inevitable. Okay, it's part of pantheism, which I think is, we can kind of think of that as, just the next step of evolution for humanity. The cosmic mind over the earthly mind. The cosmic mind just completely desecrates the puny earthly mind, and the earthly mind desecrates the puny religious mind, the closed-mindedness of it. It's just that's my thought on it. Okay, and like I said, as for capitalism, currency can represent the resource and be bound by the resources, but the resources should never be bound by the currency. Okay, and therefore you cannot be a capitalist. You can't even really be technically you can't really be a communist yet, until we get, more resources. But there actually is plenty of resources to actually be evenly distributed around the world. Nations, that's another concept that's going to die out. Okay, it is inevitable, whether it's a bad one world government or a good one world government, it's just going to happen. Okay, eventually, probably won't be a one world government; it'll be a one world community. Okay, that's going to be drastically different. You have to think that, yeah, time keeps marching forward, people. Okay, one concept's not going to stay the same. Okay, everything changes, everything. Okay, even religion, even God, if there is one. Okay, it changes. That's just the way the universe works. There's what you want, and then there's what the universe actually does. Okay, and there's not, they may coincide, they may not. That's just how it works. But this is most likely going to be the next step in our evolutionary thinking. Several philosophers have also discussed that, hence the name to my title. I don't necessarily completely agree with what he says, but I do see that actually has happened, and we're in the middle of a transition. Anyway, that is my thesis on capitalism and Christianity. Hope you enjoyed it. One more thing to Christians. Okay, so you do realize that you stole your theology from Zoroastrianism and the Babylonians, right? That makes you a thief. You also realize that you've lied about, they've lied to you, and you've perpetuated that lie with the knowledge that is available to you, that it actually did come from Zoroastrianism and stuff like that. That makes you a liar. Okay? And you also stuck up for killing in the name of a god that perhaps probably had nothing to do with what you were trying to propagate. That makes you an accomplice to murder. Now go ask Ray Comfort what it says in your book that's going to happen to you. Bye.